And there's a place that I've dreamed of, where I can free my mind. I hear the sounds of the season and lose all sense of time. Feels like we're in a dream, you know what I mean.
Right there, Kent McIntosh.
Good evening, folks. It is Monday yet again. Unfortunately, it has come quicker than we had hoped, and the results of what we were hoping for, unfortunately, didn't come true. For all those who are having a bit of a hangover, having a rough day, thinking that it's still Sunday after the big game and the big letdown, just want you to know you're not alone. It is everywhere. It is being talked about just about everywhere, and I'm sure all of you are feeling the same as myself. And I was talking to Jim and Lawrence, same thing just before we went live. Everybody's feeling it. It was an incredible series. It was an incredible run. And what are your thoughts? I'm just thankful for what was and will be, hopefully, one of the best World Series I've ever had the pleasure of watching. Probably one of the most exciting. Game 7 especially had everything in it. Like there was absolutely nothing other than a win for the Blue Jays that we could have wished for. That game literally had just about everything you could imagine in it. And it sucks, doesn't it? Doesn't it just suck? Oh, man. Good evening, as always. Lloyd's in the house. How you doing, Lloyd? Nice to have you guys along. It's one big group hug for the unfortunate outcome that we all witnessed. But what a great run, eh? What a fantastic run. You couldn't have asked for a better run other than the inevitable outcome. Tony, how you doing, man? I hope you're okay. I know you're a big fan. We all are. We're all big fans, but unfortunately, the inevitable had to happen. It had to come to an end, and somebody had to lose. And I think the only takeaway I'd like to say is, at the end of the day, yes, could we have done things differently? Could have we had different calls? What I was really hoping for was that we weren't going to wake up Sunday morning and have everybody just running the gauntlet of, oh, why did the ump do this? Why did that player do this? Why did we make this decision? Why didn't that go to that guy? And it started okay, and then unfortunately, it just unraveled. And that is unfortunately what the social media feeds have been inundated with, from what I've seen. But I've also loved some of the interviews that we have had repeated on social media with some of the players, like Ernie Clement. I don't know the man, but I'd love to give that guy a hug. That interview he had after the game, as I said, it was tough to keep a dry eye watching him struggle through that interview. Absolutely incredible. But I will say, on behalf of CFN and all of us here, thanks to the Toronto Blue Jays for an incredible run. Thanks for the greatest series we could have ever hoped for without a win. It was entertaining baseball. Gary, how you doing tonight? Ed's in the house. Nice to see you too. Steve's been keeping the fort under wraps, and I want a big shout out. Thank you to Steve and Walt for doing their part from our CFN standpoint. As I said, this whole community is built on a very, very strong foundation, and you're one of them too, Joe. Nice to have you. Bruce is in the house too. Oh, we got a good group. Walt's here. Yeah, baby. They were great. Yes, they were. Yeah, just swung one way, pun into it. It really did. At the end of the day, it was just like, talk about a high. Who am I the only one alone, or maybe some of you are down at the game? When Bobichette hit the home run, like I would have loved to have heard that roar. I would have loved to have heard that firsthand, live, because on TV, it obviously didn't do it justice, but you could tell, like the cameras were all shaking, like it was loud, and the energy, from what I understand, was just through the roof. But yeah, when he hit that home run, you guys as well as myself probably thought, this is it. This is start to chill the champagne, as they say, and it definitely did that, Steve. Yeah, truly united Canadians in a time that we need to be united, because there's a lot of horrible things that are going on. Some of the things we're going to talk with Lawrence about, because there is something that's going out on BC that is very concerning to me. And again, I never want to turn this into a political show, but yeah, we got to keep a close eye on what's going on in BC. I'll tell you that right now. Blue Jays did great. Only a few bad breaks caused. Yeah, it's the best way to say it, Tony. It really is. That's exactly it. Brad's in the house. How you doing, Brad? Been busy. We've got a few shows to announce. So stay tuned to that. There's a couple of announcements that I want to make, that I have to make in regards to the CFN Fish Off, to make sure that folks are not losing faith that their prizes are going to be shipped. So awesome to see all you guys here. Thanks so much for, yeah, absolutely. This is great comments, guys. Really appreciate this. At the end of the day, it is what it is, and we'll talk about it with both Jim and Lawrence and get their take on it. But right out of the gate, as I said, it is slowly becoming the end of our 10th anniversary. We are in the second last month of what has been a fantastic celebration, and we've had the luxury of the video that you saw at Camp McIntosh. We've also had the pleasure of our CFN community up at Horwood Lake Lodge, and both retreats right now are half full. I think Horwood might actually be a little bit further ahead, but I'm proud to say that both retreats are half full. So if you are looking to join us up at Camp Mac, as we did with the video in the outset, please get a hold of Andre and Tracy. As I said, there's still room available. And of course, Horwood Lake Lodge, if you're looking to join us in August, again next year, it will be our 8th annual CFN retreat. And it was a great retreat, summed up by this pretty cool video. Hope to, anyway. We'd love to see you there. As I said, we will be putting some promos together for August and September for both Camp McIntosh and Horwood Lake Lodge. And as I said, we would love to see you there. Love to have you experience what our CFN community and some of our regulars have been enjoying for a number of years now. But I'd love to have you along. CFN Fish Off, as I said, we have some addresses that have been confirmed. We will be starting this week, starting to get some of the prizes out to you folks. I appreciate all of your patience. And of course, CFN Land has been extremely busy, but we will make sure that we get that out to you sooner than later. So yes, stay tuned. There's lots of prizes still to come. We do need to make an announcement in regards to the Made in Canada tackle shows. We have confirmed dates. Right now, Caledonia is filling up nicely. Our good buddy Brad, who's on the feed with us, listening along, has done an incredible job getting all of this done and set up so folks can register themselves as vendors, as well as prepare and mark their dates on their calendar to make sure they're a part of it. But Caledonia is our first event. That's January 17th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. down at the Caledonia Fair Gardens. If you need any more information, or you are looking to become a vendor, or maybe you're already a vendor that has been at one of our shows and you're just looking, please go to CanadianTackleShows.ca and you can get yourself registered. Our second venue is going to be February 14th, and that is in Chatham. And we have a muskie division that's been set up there, or at least set aside. So folks that are in the muskie community, and maybe you can't make the trek to Cancast. This is just gives you an option in the West End. Not going to be a huge section by any means, but it'll be dedicated to that area and that muskie fishery. And hopefully we get to see a lot of muskie vendors out at this show. But again, February 14th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the John Bradley Center, right where we were last year. Instead of it being on Super Bowl weekend, it's the following weekend, which is Family Day weekend. So again, CanadianTackleShows.ca. Head on over there and get yourself registered. Right after that, we are going to be in Ottawa, February 19th to the 22nd. We're going to be there with our good buddy, Big Jim. And want a big shout out, thank you to Scott Sprague for seeing this through and having us a part of this show again. It is a show that's growing, and I know Jim's worked very hard to build it, and it continues to do so. So we're excited to be a part of that. And this is not the last, because there is another show in the works, but our Kitchener show at Binghamton's is a go as well. As of right now, March 7th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., as I mentioned, in Binghamton's Park in Kitchener. And what we are hoping is to also be making an announcement. We're working very hard right now with the Toronto Sportsman Show, and they want to see an element of the Made in Canada tackle show at their show, and are working very hard with us. I want to say a big shout out, thank you to Mike. Brad and I had a meeting with him last week, and I can honestly say, guys, outside of the fact that it's a really cool show, he is a really cool show director. And literally, and Brad can attest to this, I sat back several times during our discussion where I basically just said, my Lord, this guy gets it. Like, he really gets it. Like, he's on board. Like Brad and I are on board. Like, our vendors are on board. Like, those who come to these shows and support it are on board. It was awesome to see. It was awesome to hear. And I mentioned it several times during our meeting. Like, holy crap. Like, it's like listening to the two of us talk. For such a big show, and the director of it, he's really in tune to what is needed in our community. So we're looking forward to that. A couple other things to talk about. I wanted to share, just in case folks didn't see this, and it is quite remarkable. This gem, and I'd love to meet the guy, because the effort that he puts in to hauling this fish in. Jesse Lance on the Missouri River. When you see a fish this big that he can't lift, like, I can't believe that swims in fresh water. It looks like a freaking shark. Massive fish. Just again, not in Canadian waters, but worthy of celebrating, because and this is the cool part. His number one goal was not to have a record, not to have a trophy, not to have his name in lights. He has fished that body of water ever since he was a kid with his grandfather, and he managed to put that fish back and perform catch and release. So shout out, congratulations to Jess for not only catching a whopper of a fish, but for having the ability to return it to where it came from. Really cool stuff. Well, as I said, lots of other things that I should mention, but let's get to the panel right away. We have both Jim and Lawrence tonight. So let's get to Jim first. Yeah, baby.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
So, Jim, right off the bat, let's get your take. I know you watched it just like the rest of us. You've been through the World Series before, a few teases here and there.
I was at the first one.
That's awesome. Were you pitching?
Say again?
Were you pitching? Were you like the leadoff hitter?
Designated hitter.
There you designated. I bet. How'd you feel, dude? Saturday, Friday, let's talk Friday first. Bit of a letdown Friday, but we still knew that we had Game 7. Game 7 with all of its hills and valleys, highs and lows. How'd you feel after it was all over?
I felt kind of rewarded for just everything that went on around it because I don't watch baseball. I watch the World Series.
Yep.
You know, I used to be a freak about it, but I wouldn't give you the time of day for it. Comes to the
Yeah.
World Series, put the Blue Jays in. I'm in, both hands up. I'm ready to go. I think the whole thing was awesome. Like just the way everything went. There was really no crap happened. There was a couple of little things there toward the end, and whatever. But it was just, I'm sure there's guys on the Dodgers side that, if they would have lost, would say, well, we lost because of this or because of that. We did this, but there was a couple of little goofy things, like the ball in the fence bit. Go read the rule book, they got screwed on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was telling you about it. I mean, it covers that right in the rule book very clearly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that would have tied it. And then who knows what would have happened. And then, that broken bat, force at home. No, the force at home in the ninth.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
the guy was like 2 feet from the base and the third baseman was like 15 feet away.
Yeah.
Like not a noted base stealer, not a guy with a lot of speed. So they're not paying a lot of attention to him.
Yeah.
Like, where was the third base coach, telling him, he says he told him to stick. He didn't like what he saw. Well, what is there to see? The guy's standing 15 feet away or more from you.
Yeah.
You're 5 feet from the bag. He can't get there and the ball get there before you get back,
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. And when you see it's by this much at home plate, but you can always find something. So it's,
it's a game of inches, as it was said. Anybody who liked the movie Any Given Sunday, it's so true. Like it's a game of inches, and if that ball was hit a little bit further by Clement, where those two players collide, who knows what that would have turned into. If Kirk's bat doesn't break, that ball probably goes a little bit further, and we're having a different discussion. He's a one step a little bit further towards the plate than he was. He makes it home. Like it is a game of inches. And I think what is lost in all of this, just because of how upset we are from the outcome, good on the Dodgers, man. Talk about a team that didn't quit. Holy crap.
That's 2 in a row. Did you see the thing today? I forget the guy's name. He plays for the Dodgers. This is the 6th World Series in a row he's won.
What, the manager?
No, one of the players.
Oh, I don't.
He's been traded.
Oh, wow. I thought that was our Max. Our Max has been in at least 3 World Series that I was aware of. And
No, he's won 6.
That's
3 with the
interesting.
Dodgers, 1 with the Braves, 1 and 2 others. I just saw it there just before just wild. They just the luck of the draw from trades, eh?
That is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you see that in hockey? They trade somebody, the next year they win. Look when Quebec moved to, and they win the Stanley Cup the next year. Stuff like that. It's
Yep. That's actually a great analogy. I love that because Quebec.
We're back to the now we're back to the only thing that really matters to me is hockey.
Yeah.
And I almost can't even be bothered with that anymore with all the bullshit.
Well, it's funny you say that because a lot of folks were talking about that today. Of course, they were talking about the Blue Jays, but they were talking about, the Leafs as well and how that now they're, the big show. And I think it's going to take a little bit for them to warm back up to watching them. I mean, unless you're a true diehard Leaf fan, Did
you see the meme with the guy in the stands? He's got the Jays shirt on.
Yeah.
He peels it off when they lose and starts folding it up. And he's wearing another shirt. And it says, "I'm ready to get hurt again." And he takes that one off and he's got his Leafs jersey on under it.
Oh, well.
His face.
I think I'm more prepared for the Leafs this year than I was the Jays. I don't think anybody would have expected the Jays to do as well as they did.
Weren't they last place last year?
They were struggling. I don't know. I don't follow it as deeply and as strictly as I should. But like they were, let's face it, as things go on paper, they were an admirable team. They were a good team, but not good enough. And I don't think anybody gave us a hope in hell of making it as far as we did.
I felt so bad for Don Mattingly.
Yes, yeah,
Did you see him sitting out there all alone at the
Yeah.
end, leaning on the rail?
yeah,
Because he knows that's his last chance,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Well,
what it is.
it is what it is, and we move on. Jim, it's an interesting time of year, obviously because baseball, hockey starting, basketball. Like there's so many sports going on, but we forget that this is kind of that transition period. If you are a diehard angler, you're out on the water. If you're a weekend warrior, you're probably getting your stuff put away and getting ready for ice fishing. This time of year, Jim, I always ask you, what are you typically doing when you were back in your heyday? What were you targeting right now and going for?
Well, I'd be guiding, but fishing would be over for the most part. Back then, they did not fish. The end of September. Whoa.
Yeah.
And now because of the smallmouths, and I guess anybody can catch them. I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day. He came over. He says to me, "If I see another person holding up 2 4-pound smallmouths," he says, "I'm going to take my NRX rods out and burn them."
Oof.
I said, "Is it bothering you that much?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "If
Wow.
people that didn't fish 2 years ago, and they're all out there fishing, they're just targeting smallmouths and thinking they're bass heroes, And I said, "Well, I'll leave that with you.
Yeah.
I have my feelings.
Yeah.
It's you don't have to. It's a lot easier now. It's a lot
100%.
easier to catch good fish now than it was 25 years ago, and not just because of forward-facing sonar. I mean, just because of everything that's changed: the rods, the line, lures, knowledge. Knowledge is the big thing, and then you throw in something like forward-facing sonar, and I mean, there's going to be an awful crop of people with bad necks in a few years that are fishermen. In fact, I've heard there's a few people are experiencing trouble that fish professionally.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, from having their head down all the time. That's why you see them getting longer poles at the front, so they can hold it up a little bit more, right? And they can adjust it. They've got 2 or 3 places to put the screw through. The knob. Yeah.
Well, did you see that screen that Garmin has come out with that literally, I think it's like 36 inches. It's so freaking big. It's not, but it's a huge screen. It just got unveiled. I don't know if it's going to production or already has hit production, but it's massive. So yeah, these things aren't getting any smaller, and it's going to be more interesting to
This
see how
time of year, though, when I fished, Scotty, it would have been muskie and walleye.
Yep. George, to your point, you're right. Yeah, it is. It has become a little bit of a sports podcast this morning, just to, at the end of the day, just talk about what happened and how we all went through it, and the fact that you were over in Germany. I don't know if you had the pleasure of seeing it, watching it, but as a fellow Torontonian, Ontarian, and Canadian, I'm sure you were rooting with the rest of us for the Blue Jays. But nice to have you back, George.
Hey, when
Jim?
you were mentioning the when you were mentioning the Ottawa show, I've been talking to Scott about trying to get have a muskie day, like a muskie Saturday or something.
Yeah.
And get several people, other people to come speak. We're going to try to change it up a little bit this year. Get some new speakers, different speakers. We're going to get a couple more guys in to talk about fly fishing, because we got Dan there is going to help out with that, and just change it up a little bit. It's probably not good to keep things exactly the same every year. Like the kids' pond's the kids' pond. It's kids having a hoot. But to change the speakers up and just get some different things. I got a few things written down here. I'm going to talk to them again this week. We've changed the times. We're gonna make the seminars every hour on the hour for the time. So there'll be no when you get up there to talk, you'll have me standing behind you with the bat, telling you that you've got 35 minutes, because by the time you're done and you talk to people and get off the stage, the other person needs some courtesy to put their stuff out and get going. So, but we're gonna change things up a little bit. So I guess a couple of people had mentioned that the times for the seminars there was confusion
Oh,
because
I thought it was posted, wasn't it?
well,
We
it was always posted, and
yeah.
apparently 3:15 and 3 o'clock didn't ring a bell the same. You know, I have no idea, but anyways, we've kept the number of seminars the same, but we've made them one every hour because I used to try to have half hour, 45 minutes between them.
Yeah, yeah.
So we pushed them together. You know, not having them late in the day, not having them first thing in the morning, but just having one every hour for yay many hours. You know,
And that makes
so make
sense.
it a little bit.
Yeah, it makes sense. I
Yeah.
think, and they're well attended. That's the other thing too that has to be mentioned. It doesn't really matter who's up there, if it's Greg or John Anderson. They're well attended, and there's a wealth of information that is shared, far more than what we are able to do each week
Well, there's
here.
a lot of really good fishermen around Ottawa.
Yes, yeah,
Like, I mean, like for the size of the place, for the number of really good anglers, I
yeah.
think it's a much higher percentage around Ottawa than it is Toronto. Yeah, there's some comfort.
Make sure to give Dave Chonger the hook.
I'm putting you in, Steve.
That's hilarious. So I was busy visiting bakeries, and that's interesting. Yes, something that is talked about here by a few people that would love to see us have a little bit more carp content. Jim, were you a big carp fisherman back in the day?
I used to catch the odd ones in the Ottawa River when we were fishing. And I went through when Shimano tried to make them more popular. You know, we just talked about this a few weeks ago. You know, I mean, Shimano spent like a monumental amount of money trying to make carp fishing become big in Canada, and it just fizzled. You know, for
Yeah.
about a year, everybody was going carp fishing, and then so they're the fish. They're like the Rodney Dangerfield of the fish world. They get no respect, you know, except a few guys that are just die hard and into them, and they love them. But I've often told people, where else can you go fishing? And probably almost every time you go out, you can have a double-digit fish yanking on the end of your line from shore. You know, like some of the days I spent down in the St. Lawrence here with guys fishing down by, down toward Cornwall and that. Oh my Lord, we caught like 25, 30 fish, and a lot of them were like 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Like,
In the fall, this time of transition, when water temperatures are starting to cool, is your presentation. Obviously, it's still a reactionary bite to a certain extent, but are you slowing your presentation down? What are you doing
for
differently
sure.
this time of year?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I was talking about that guy I was telling you about I was talking to. He said to me today, he said he's on a little lake and the water on his lake is now was on the weekend was Saturday, I think it was. He said was 51 at the dock in the morning, which is it's getting down there. It's not as low as it usually is, but it's getting down there, you know.
Mhm.
And he said to me, what would you be doing now? And I said, well, if I was to be out, I said that once it hits that, especially once it breaks the 50, then I'm probably fishing with a jig and nothing but.
Yeah.
And I'm fishing it a lot slower. I'm throwing it up toward deep water or toward shallow water, wherever I, think when I say shallow, I don't mean the shoreline.
Mhm.
Just probably throwing it up into 6-8 feet of water for largemouths and sitting out 15 and fishing the jig down over whatever I want, because that's where they're in that still back and forth before they eventually stay. And
Mhm.
then, you got to realize where you caught the fish. And then if once you realize where they are, it's like anything else. It's just it's a question of time, but you got to fish slow. And I mean, the jig's the worst thing to cover water with, especially when you have to fish, really slow.
Yeah.
It's one thing to fish it slow in the summertime. It's another thing to fish it slow right now or a week or two from now. I mean, I used to fish till the end of November
Mhm.
for largemouth. And a lot of times you'd bring the jig back. We're just using a flipping jig. We didn't have swim jigs yet. You don't need a swim jig to do it, but we'd throw it up into 8 feet of water where we were catching them a month ago, and you'd bring it out real slow, let it go to the bottom, shake it around, just let it sit there, or just swim it back the whole way as slow as you could. And as soon as you feel it touch something, you just turn the handle a bit faster to keep it up just off the bottom and off the stuff down there. Al Linder talks about this, and he always talks about swimming the jig back and just making it go thump, 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 thump. Just giving it little teeny little pops just to keep it moving, eh? And it definitely works. I mean, I've I caught so many fish doing that, and I didn't even get on to fishing a jig and a minnow. There's a lot of photos you see of me with largemouths with a jig, like a jig head and a minnow in their mouth.
Mhm.
You know the way largemouths eat like 4-inch chubs and shiners in the fall along a weed line or something when you can't get them to eat a jig? They're right on it. That's where live bait shines. Eh?
I have to say, to your point, bass fishing is it is a full spectrum of presentations, and it starts from the little itty bitty micro jigs to things that are the same size as them. Like, I mean, they're catching bass on musky baits, for the love of Pete.
I've got lots of big bass on musky baits.
That's the one thing that intrigues me about bass fishing is you can never go too small and you can never go too big.
Well, look at the glide bait bit.
Yes.
Using things that are 8 to 10 inches long for largemouths, and you're not always catching giant fish. I've caught a lot of 4-pound fish. See, here's a picture from the fall from many years ago that I found the other day. You can see what's in its mouth. Just a little jig head.
Oh yeah.
A little weenie jig head there. That's one of those Northland weed weasels with the little plastic weed guard.
Wow.
And we're going along a weed line. We're catching like 1 to 3.5 pound largemouths. I don't know that day. That was over on what lake? I don't even remember what lake it was on, but I know we caught a load of fish. An absolute load. It was a lake I'd never fished before, and to have the kahunas to go fish a lake for largemouths in November that you've never fished, and it was a beautiful day. When you can see it was all hazy and everything,
Mhm.
It was all misty all day, and it went up to like 14 or something, and it was the glass calm, and the fish. Oh my God, the weed lines in 15, 16 feet of water, the deeper edge was just lit up like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
We caught crappies that were close to 2 pounds. We caught walleyes that were 30 inches. We caught 4-pound, 5-pound largemouths, like just all sorts of fish. And I went back there, I think it was 2 days after, with a buddy of mine, Paul, who's a really good photographer. And I think we maybe put a dozen fish in the boat all day.
Wow.
So it just, now mind you, we got a couple of nice ones still because there was just so many fish there. But we didn't get a single crappie. We didn't get a single perch. We just got walleyes and largemouths. We got a few nice largemouths, 4 and 3/4,
Mhm.
but on that little jig and minnow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you were casting, was it always through the snout, or did you tail hook some of your minnows as well?
Oh, that'd be through the nose.
Through the nose, yeah. Yeah.
Right between the eyes, so you get the skull.
Yeah.
Hold it on. Yeah.
And a topic that you love talking about is the change in water depths, and what a spectrum of change we've had on Lake Erie. I don't know what it's been like on Lake Ontario, but Lake Erie especially. I think it was either you or Jay shared some pictures of Sugarloaf and a few of the marinas on the eastern end of Lake Erie.
Great, yeah.
And they were dry. Like, these boats were on mud. That's how much wind had pushed the water out of.
And I'm so happy this has come up and happened this year, and it's even more so because the water's a little lower than usual. So when that happens, it wasn't that you looked out and still saw water, but it was only this deep. Now you looked out because it was that much lower to begin with. You like you saw mud. Like, we got, I think, 72 millimeters of rain here last week. Wow. And I noticed the water here in the lake and a couple of the creeks is right back up, like, big time. Ottawa got in October, they got 60% more rain than they usually do in October.
Wow.
So, you watch what's going to happen now. We're supposed to get monster rain again a couple of times here in the next little bit. You watch what's going to happen. We're getting all this rain late in the year now. So we're going to start with things full, and there'll be floods in the spring if we get lots of snow. You watch.
Well, let's hope not, but you're probably right. And, we've had a reminder of how wicked weather can be and how strong Mother Nature how much she can remind us of her strength, I should say.
Like this, Scotty?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%. That hurricane that went through Jamaica, Again, just a reminder of the
Scary,
power
eh?
of water. It really was scary. And what we're seeing this week, from what you had mentioned, we've had changing winds, rain, no rain, wind.
Yeah, we had rain and wind here. We had rain here this afternoon. We probably got about 15 millimeters of rain in like 4 hours
Yeah,
and like 60, 70K winds. Like the dog was spooked from the wind. The house was just
right.
vibrant.
Wow.
Yeah. And yet this morning I got up here, I went out, I opened the door in the office here at 6 o'clock, 6:15, I think it was, and it was 12 degrees here.
Jeez.
I think it's down to 4 now already. But you just, so.
They are threatening the four-letter word.
Oh
Perhaps
yeah, they did here
this
for up in
weekend.
Ottawa.
I did hear that, and even sometime next week that they're keeping an eye on a potential storm. Let's just say, I don't want to say the word because I don't want to jinx it, but
We're supposed to get it here. I think it's Monday night, it said.
yeah,
And the high Tuesday's 9. So
it ain't gonna stick around, that's for sure.
No.
Outside of just keeping up to date with the latest edition of Just Fishing, what else are you up to these days, Jim?
well, I've been trying to take care of myself a little better. I've been working on lots of stuff for the Dadson guys
Nice.
the last couple of days.
Wow.
That'll make a real nice one
Will it ever?
for a musky spinner. And I made this one today in between emails and stuff.
Wow.
2 pieces go together, so it makes really nice big layer. And then this one here really, really drew some attention from some of the musky guys because I posted a picture of it. It's this one here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Wicked colors.
that's huge. So I'll
And
make a
I
few
guess
more of these.
at this stage, they're ready for cowbells. They're ready for the hardware. Like,
Yeah, they got the coil in the middle. They slide them on the wire and bend them up, and away they go. Yeah, I still got some sealing to do and stuff more on them, but yeah.
how long does it take you to put something like that together, Jim?
Well, in between everything else I did today, I made 2. I made the white one and the brown and red one. I made 2. I probably got, I don't know, if I went right at it, I probably got, I don't know, 90 minutes in the 2 pieces. Wow.
So it is time consuming.
Yeah, a little more. And I've tapped in with Bosselman now from Dadson, and I started getting. I'm gonna play around like the way the tinsel comes for the baits is it comes like this, eh?
Wow.
It's in great big skeins, eh? And that's why I've started. I don't make a tinsel, but you can see that one has some pieces cut off from the side there. See, it's shorter.
Mhm.
I've added some onto a couple of the baits. That's when I got it, because you can get some real nice colors. That's kind of cool. I like it. But yeah, we're doing that, and I'm just cleaning things up. I was purging. I went to the dump twice in the last week. Still getting rid of lots of stuff. And then Tammy started sending me a bunch of pictures of little houses again.
Okay.
So I don't know. I told her all she has to do is put the key in and turn, and we're gone.
Well, yeah. At that time, it will be a tough decision, and I don't envy it. But
She sent me this thing in this little house. It's like a teeny little house. It's over here on Highway 29,
mhm.
and it's like 285 grand. And I said to her, if we sold this one and bought that one, do you realize how mental I could go for the last 5 or 6 years of my life?
No kidding.
She says to me, aren't you going to live for more than 5 or 6 more years of your life? I said, if I had $750,000 to spend, probably not. Once again,
Yeah.
it's tough living with me at times.
Amen. Okay, well, I'll take your word for it on that. I do have to ask. A couple days back, it was Halloween, and there was a rumor going around. I had to answer a few questions. Were you really giving out reels on Halloween?
Oh, I gave out about 20, but it was a trick because the boxes were empty.
I was gonna say. I said I don't know. Jim's very giving, but the handout.
Yeah, I had a great big cardboard box. I took all the empty reel boxes, full reel boxes, whatever, right? I had them all out there. I took a picture. I didn't have them actually out there. It gets so wild here with the kids and the dog freaks when they're
Yeah.
constantly opening and closing the door. So we turned the lights on out front. We put a chair out and put out a whole bunch of stuff. And the kids, I was in the office here and I could see the vehicles. It was nonstop. It was not what it was last year, but the stuff was all gone.
So on that note, I want to thank everybody in my neighborhood. They were so appreciative of the fact that it was the 6th game. And I want to say we had one group of kids come after 8:00. Everybody else came before that and allowed all of us to watch the game. So big shout out for those in my neighborhood. As always, Jim, I want to thank you for your time and your continued support of our community and the industry as a whole. It certainly doesn't go unnoticed. But
It's fluff and hair because I was tying so much here today.
Mhm.
There's bits of stuff everywhere.
I bet. All right, Jim, you take care of yourself.
Good,
We'll be in
kiddies.
touch. All the best, my friend.
Be safe out there.
We got Lawrence coming up right after a word from our sponsor.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And this is our good buddy Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, Lawrence?
I'm well, buddy. I'm well.
That's awesome, dude. And so you know what? We'll get right to it because we are, and not too long because I don't want to upset George and the rest of the folks that are listening because they're afraid this is turning into a sports cast and fishing podcast. But what was your take? What was your biggest takeaway? Something that you want to share with us? Because really, there's so many stories, so many different versions of the same story, but I'd love to hear it from you simply because you watch the game differently than us.
You know, I think the Blue Jays went down to LA. They won 2 out of 3 games. The only game the Dodgers won, it took them 18 innings, right, to scratch out a win in their home stadium. So, you know, and then they come back and, you know, yeah, okay, so they beat the Jays in the first game and it comes down to game 7 and it just, you know, that you just have this really strong feeling that the Jays are just going, they're just going well. Everything's going well for them. They're all hitting, they're all running, they're all you know, there's always players on bags every inning. It's just amazing, exciting baseball to watch. It's never been more exciting. It's absolutely probably the best World Series ever played. It was so exciting. And but
I haven't been around forever, but I would have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, and then but the Dodgers won it fair and square. I mean, all these little calls and the Dodgers making these little decisions and getting all their first-ranked pitchers out there and sending out their defensive players and they're making adjustments. Everyone's making adjustments. And it just, it comes down to just little tiny things that tips the balance back and forth. Oh my God. I was cheering. I was crying. I was cheering.
Oh, yeah. And it was a kaleidoscope of emotions. There's no doubt about it.
Oh.
But I have to say, the Dodgers had to play their best baseball to beat us. And, we set records along the way. I mean, Ernie Clement should be MVP of the playoffs, in my opinion, for the number of hits that guy got. Like, I don't think there was too many times that he swung and never got on base. The guy was a record.
He set a new record, right? He said it for the most runners, the most hits in off-season play. He had the most hits, over 30 hits, 31 hits. He set a record.
Incredible stuff. So as I said, for all of us who are at the last stages, I hope, of mourning. They were talking about it this morning on breakfast television, how one of the therapists came up and said, if this goes into like a week-long mourning of the loss, you might want to talk to somebody. And I'm not trying to be funny by any means, but some folks are more invested than others. Some truly just see it as a sport and appreciate it for what it is. And then there's some people that have been waiting 32 years for this to happen.
Yeah.
And you couldn't come any closer. You just could not come any closer to winning a World Series than the Jays did. So again,
look, last time I listened to the World Series when the Blue Jays were playing, and years ago, the color commentary people on, they tell you, they announce every pitch, right?
Mhm.
They pitch by pitch. Now you watch it and then they just talk. And you're just talking, and I'm thinking, oh, they're not calling the pitches. So I'm trying to listen, and where was that? Where was that? But then I realized, they'll mention it when it's important, and otherwise, just sit back and relax and enjoy the chatter, and when things get excited, they get in there and they start describing it and giving the commentary. But otherwise, they're just watching like everybody else, and I enjoyed it. I got to enjoy that of just sitting back and enjoying the game that way without getting into counting every little pitch and tallying everything up all the time. It was a new way of experiencing baseball for me, is not to be so obsessive with the numbers. And I liked it. I did. I enjoyed that for sure. I thought it was a classy. My last comment, Scotty, I said, you know what? Win or lose, I said they better hold the parade for the Blue Jays, and I would have been happy if they had a parade through Toronto.
Well, it's still being talked about. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I saw it on a few news channels that there was talk about it. As I said, I think everybody could use a little bit more Blue Jay time just to say thanks and show appreciation, because the players.
They deserve it. They deserve a big thank you.
I agree. They do. And as I said, they certainly entertained us. They kept us on the edge of our seat, and they kept us from it was a distraction from everything that's going on everywhere else. And I know that is unfortunately what we're going to start talking about. Now, I will say this. Let's start on a good news story. It was just recently mentioned that there is going to be an influx of money that's going to come into Lake Erie via some upgrades. Ontario is investing over $10 million to modernize and expand our Wheatley and Port Dover fisheries management facilities. Lake Erie is one of the world's largest freshwater commercial fisheries, contributing $200 million to Ontario's economy every year. This investment will protect jobs and build stronger fisheries. I'd be interested to see exactly what is going on, unless maybe you have some insight on that.
Well, they're going to teach the commercial fishers that they're not catching yellow pickerel; they're catching walleye. That's you go out, you argue with these people. It's walleye. Well, it says no, these are yellow pickerel, sir. It was in our newsletter, the definition of it, how they got to be called yellow pickerel in the first place, and why that persists. But yeah, they got to clean up the terminology. I mean, if we're going to fall in love with these fish and really make them an icon and really celebrate them like they should be, and make them part of our diet and celebrate them in cafeterias and restaurants along the shore, everywhere, we got to start calling them by the right name.
Now, what was interesting is I don't believe that there's any commercial fishing on the American side. Is that correct?
No, there is.
There is? Okay.
Yeah.
It seemed like the majority of commercial fishing is on the Canadian side, but I'm glad you cleared that out, because I wasn't sure.
I was in the understanding that there's actually more commercial fishing out of the American side.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, big influx of money there. And of course, with that, we hope that news like this that was shared in Wired to Fish, why do so many anglers quit fishing? And it was a very interesting article. It's an interesting read, so I invite you guys to go over. But basically, the American Sport Fishing Association put together a report that said less than half of all licensed anglers renew their fishing license each year. That's terrifying. Now, there's a list of reasons why, but that's unbelievable.
Yeah. it's been for the 20 years, right? The boomer generation is getting older. If you look at statistics from Statistics Canada, 40% of men over 65 in Canada have disabilities, and it's hearing, back issues, hips, and knees. And in it, okay, hearing, who cares? You don't need that to fish. But if you're in a boat and you're carrying gear and you're climbing in and out of boats, up and down and off those trailers, you're trying to climb up a trailer into a boat, just getting into a boat, you're on boats that are moving around, you're on boats that have crooked floors because everything's a little bit crooked and tilted. That's hell on hips. That's hell on backs.
Yeah.
So I've been giving feedback to the industry for a long time on this. And I said, look, you want people to buy their forever boat, their last boat. You got to make sure that you start thinking about ergonomics and start talking about, good hand grips and good steps, generous steps to get in and out, level floors, supportive seating. That's what people want. That's what people want. Absolutely. And the lodges that offer door-to-door service, door-to-dock service with the golf carts, they have their population coming back year after year. If you can walk out of your cabin in the morning and someone's there taking your tackle box, putting it in the golf car, you get in the golf car and they take you down to the dock, put your tackle box in the boat, you walk on a nice solid dock that's not tipping and teetering, and you get into a boat with a comfortable seat and level floor, you're going to come back next year. But if you don't have that, and you have back issues and hip issues and knee issues, you're at some point you just say, oh man, that's just the pain. I'm not enjoying it.
No, it's a great point. And they did cite that as an issue. They also said that because of understanding how to fish, where to fish, what to use with fishing, that it's too exhausting. And the unfortunate thing is you will spend far more time learning fishing than you will actually being successful at it. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if you're taught by the right people and guided by the right people, I hate to hear that's the excuse, or at least that's the reason. I don't want to say excuse necessarily, but the fact that they find it difficult.
Well, we saw that with COVID, right? Like we saw the numbers go up 21% during COVID.
Yeah.
And they dropped off again like 7-8% over the next couple of years into 2024.
Well, it's dropped off even more, and we're going to get to that shortly. But interesting. I'd love this comment from Kevin. And Kevin, it's a great question too, because I see a lot of fish coming out of Manitoba. And it's funny that they label it the way they do. But Kevin says here, Lawrence, in Manitoba, too many people call a walleye a pickerel. And we don't even have true pickerel anywhere in Manitoba. Basically, everyone except anglers call them pickerel. Even when you go to buy fillets at a fish market, they are labeled pickerel. And it's interesting you say that, because that's what I see too. I see it always labeled as pickerel.
It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that the industry is so obtuse, that they can't even get involved with the society, with the community. People who live in those coastal communities and go fish for walleye. Yeah. And yet the industry says, oh, we've always called them pickerel, yellow pickerel. That's what we call them. That's how we market them. Get a life. Just get a life.
Well, it doesn't make it any easier to for our work that we try to do to educate anglers. That seems to be that's a step backwards when it comes to fish identification and just understanding what fish it is that you're targeting, because you will likely target a chain pickerel a little bit different than you would a walleye or yellow pickerel for that matter. So yeah, great point, Kevin. Thanks so much. And again, congratulations on that big slob bite that we shared today on our page. Now let's get into some of the nitty gritty. And unfortunately, as I said, this is a difficult topic to talk about because we try not to involve too much of the political realm, but for the lack of, pardon my language, and for the lack of saying it in a better way, what in the hell is going on out in BC?
They say politics in BC is a religion. They fervently believe in their politics, and that extends right through to their fishing, right? And you see that. I wrote, if you check out my newsletter, and you'll see an article I wrote, and I'm pleading, look, don't make it a partisan issue, because you're not going to get the movement you want to get. Fishing is everybody. It's not right. It's not left. It's not, socialist or conservative. It's not those things. It's everybody. And if you make it a political issue, the conservatives against the liberals, and we got to overthrow to get what we need, otherwise it's not going to happen, you're alienating a huge group of people that say, well, I don't see myself there. And I don't know. I'm preaching to, I feel bad. I mean, and then I listened to this Facebook stream two Sundays ago out of Vancouver Island. Over 100 people show up. All people who love fishing on the ocean for salmon, recreationally outfitters, lodges, tackle owners, TV hosts, politicians are there. And it's so the emotion is so, my goodness, I tell you,
it's toxic. For lack of a better way of saying it, it is absolutely toxic.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even talk about without getting angry from an angler's perspective. I don't know what it is about BC waters and the West Coast, but recreational anglers seem to be, at the bullseye of every dartboard that's out there. We constantly have to give up this. We constantly have to give up that for the sake of the orca, for the sake of the commercial fishery, for the sake of the future of the fishery. It's always us that take it on the nose out in that province. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask, without it being somewhat rhetorical, because I already know what the answer is, why? Why do we let this happen?
It's an easy score for politicians. You've got a lot of environmentalists on the West Coast who are pushing, this whole narrative of the orcas need to be saved. This is like the last living northern rhinoceros, right? In Africa, last living white northern rhinoceros. It was down to 2 females and a male, and they're surrounded by guards with guns 24 hours a day. And then the male dies, and there's only 2 females left. But they take the sperm out of the male, they freeze that. Now they're trying to figure out how to bring them back. We're going to get there. There's going to be 3 orcas left, and we'll have shut everything down. We'll surround them with people with guns. And if anyone dare come close with a fishing rod, you're going to hell. You're going to hell. That's where we're heading. The feelings on the environmental side and the promoting these orcas as a sort of the bellwether of climate change, the representation of all things going wrong. It's not accurate. They're not talking science in any way, shape, or form. The numbers have dropped, but there's lots of science that's been done that shows why. And yet none of that science is being listened to when now they're talking about putting in place permanent closures to recreational fishing in the southern part of British Columbia on the ocean there.
And listen, I'm an animal lover, and I love orcas as much as I do salmon. But I'm just, everything to me sets a precedent. And as soon as you start taking stuff away, it's not often that you see it come back. I don't want to be that guy, but it's especially out there. That seems to be the routine. It seems to be what has been happening traditionally year after year after year. And, we've managed to catch DFO in a bit of a faux pas years ago. It seems like, we're starting to get the science wrong again, because of course we're listening to the commercial side of things, and we're not looking at the recreational investment that goes on out there and what it means to the economy. And then the latest that I've heard, and I'm not one to listen to podcasts necessarily that are just there to bait you and get you upset. But there's a gentleman that has the Moose on the Loose. And lately I've been listening to him. And what is really concerning to me is what's in the courts right now with the reclamation of land. And man, we're going down a slippery slope out there. Like I don't know. It's just like a dumpster fire out in BC. And
Well, we've seen a bunch of incidents of that, and on the West Coast where you're talking about Richmond, and this is a court ruling that says that land that's been held in title by individuals, you own your piece of land, that now that's being questioned, and that says, well, no, in fact, you don't own that. It belongs to this First Nations community. We've never seen that before, where a court is actually threatened individual property rights, and it's sending a shudder across Canada, because where does that go, right? So that's got to be figured out. Then we had an earlier sign of that too this year, and a provincial park just north of Vancouver that where they said, okay, the park needs to arrest. We had 200,000 visitors last year. We need to give it a rest this year in 2025. So the park announced that they would close it in April, just allowed only for the First Nations communities to come, and for a month, and then 2 months in the fall, in September, October, they would close it and just allow First Nations communities to come, because the park needed a rest, because it was overly utilized by visitors, other visitors, non-Indigenous visitors. And people got into an uproar, and they said, what's that all about? Does it need a rest, or does it not need a rest? Like, what's going on here? And just mixed messages. And then you look what's going on all up through the northern part of Vancouver Island, and they're stringing together all these Indigenous conserved and protected areas and marine conservation areas, and they're creating a really contiguous part of the ocean and the coastline. And when Parks Canada works with Indigenous communities and the province, and not coastal communities, not non-Indigenous communities, because the federal government has no jurisdiction for that. And when they decide, okay, let's create these marine conservation areas here, and they said, will it include fishing? Check, yes, fishing will need to be managed differently somehow. And then they appoint a local management board made up of the people who they feel will best represent those conservation values, and they will decide what that looks like later, with no oversight. They'll decide themselves, what does that mean in terms of fishing. And according to one individual who is a fisher, and she sits on these boards, but she has a non-disclosure agreement, and she's not allowed to talk about what's being discussed, but she's worried. She said, yeah, the fishing is going to be curtailed.
And I guess my first fear was just the fish stocks in general. Of course, Bill Gates came on, I don't know what podcast he was on, and announced that global warming is all a hoax. And like, at the end of the day, I don't even know what to believe anymore, just based on you're hearing so much rhetoric, you're hearing so much propaganda, that I don't know what story to believe. But at the end of the day, for me, when you have people pitting other people against one another, and that's what's going on in the province of BC more so than anywhere else. That all comes down to leadership, and if you can't get two factions of people to sit at a table and properly hash things out, that's on the leadership. Like that's on the people that are supposed to be in places of authority to combat this. Because really, like, what's going to happen? And I don't mean to pit. I mean, let's just say the players that are involved. Someone shows up at your house and says, you know what, you don't own that anymore. Like, how do you think that's going to go down? Or, you know what, I know you've been fishing these waters for years, but now that we've reclaimed this area, you're a lot longer allowed to be here. How do you think that's going to end up? Mm-hmm. Like, mm-hmm. You're just pitting people against one another. And at the end of the day, whether you're a commercial fisherman, recreational angler, you just want to enjoy the water. You want to be able to make a living. But it just seems out there the recreational anglers take it on the chin every single time. And I'm not one to get upset about politics, but I'm getting kind of sick of listening to these poor recreational anglers constantly having to forego and forfeit their recreational angling. It's just wrong.
The thing is, the angling community is not becoming bipartisan, right, on these issues. They're becoming partisan. They're making a political partisan issue, an election issue, and they're taking sides. And unfortunately, that's dividing the recreational community. It's like, all people from all different types of political parties go fishing. Why would you want to cut out a big chunk of the fishing community by making it a partisan issue?
Yeah.
And then by doing so, you have a government that says, you know what, we'll never get those people to support us. They're never going to vote for us anyways. So you know what, we can win a couple scores here. We can show the environmentalists that we care. And it's an easy thing because we're just going to piss off this handful of hardcore, partisan angling. And we're going to score one for reconciliation because we're going to turn it over to First Nations community. And we're going to get some budget cuts because now we don't have to look after it anymore. It's not our problem. We don't have to send conservation officers in there. We don't have to do the science. We don't have to do the oversight and the management. It's not our problem anymore. We can cut staff, cut budgets, and walk away and say, look, reconciliation, land back movement, indigenous led, conserved and protected, 30 by 2030, all of those sort of environmental goals. And it looks like a big success in the media that they've done all these great things. And who suffers? It's the recreational anglers because they voted for the wrong party. And that's the way they're looking at it. It should not come down to partisan politics. I'm sorry, but I guess that's how it works on the West Coast. I've never lived there. I've been there a bunch of times and I read about it. I talk to people. I have friends there, but it's still, I don't understand how you can just become so partisan.
Works. I would use that term loosely because it's definitely not working. It is a battle that unfortunately is as you mentioned, it's getting warmer and warmer. This could potentially get extremely ugly, and I'm concerned about that because we're doing nothing to really stop it. And somebody will say, well, Scott, what's got you so upset? Well, it would upset me if someone came onto my land that I've paid for and I'm still paying for, and someone says, no, it's not yours anymore, it's mine. Now, some would argue, well, yeah, but isn't that what your forefathers and our folks did back in the day? Well, you know what? Yeah, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know, because how many generations ago was that? Like, at the end of the day, we understood that it was wrong then. So why are we doing it now? Haven't we learned from our mistakes? Let's sit down and discuss it so that we can have a cooperative effort that is reasonable. Because right now, it's not reasonable. There's nothing reasonable about what's going on out there.
Well, First Nations communities, we have more. The fishing community has more in common with First Nations communities than environmentalists. Environmentalists, many of them don't believe in eating things, that, they're vegans for a lot of them, and First Nations community people are not vegans. They harvest. They hunt and fish and they harvest. Mm-hmm. We hunt and fish. Everyone who hunts goes fishing. Not everyone who fishes hunts, but everyone who hunts fishes. Mm-hmm. And there's all sorts of opportunities for like-minded people to get together and say, hey, how can we do this in share information to make sure we're doing it in a conservation type minded way, not, setting up barricades like you see in Manitoba around the moose hunt up there now. Let's not put barricades up. Let's work together. Let's be allies and let's protect this resource. So it's going to be around for all, they talk about First Nation people 7 generations. We talk about our grandchildren too. And we share many of the same values. And the environmentalists, they think, well, we're going to get this First Nation community on side and they'll protest the pipeline going through. They'll protest mine site development. They'll protest, any sort of economic investment. And because the First Nation community, First Nation community said, yeah, we'll let you argue our case, and then we'll get a better deal in the end. Because you need to get us on side to get this pipeline through. You're going to get us. You're going to need to get us to sign on. Well, let the environmentalists put up a good fight on our behalf, make us look like we're not going to do it. and then you'll have to pay more, and then we'll do it. And you see this over and over again, right? I mean, they're very skilled negotiators. Very skilled negotiators.
Well, they've been doing it for a number of years, and,
Yeah.
and you know, and as I said, like, I mean, you know, I'm not suggesting for a second that we didn't get it wrong at some point. I think Mike Howard's comment and question is bang on. It's like, at the end of the day, who gave one group ownership of land? No one. We were all born on this planet, and we all have rights to land and resources. I mean, it's a great point that you make, but unfortunately, through the years, we have established property. We have established ownership. It may not have been what it looked like back in the day, but it's certainly the framework of what it was. And people, unfortunately, are paying, in some cases, astronomical amount of money, especially out in BC, for the property that they feel they own. And here's the other thing: is if no one owns property, like, banks aren't going to give out mortgages. Like, you're not going to be able to build anything.
You see it already in Richmond. People are having trouble getting their mortgages renewed because no bank's going to give you a mortgage on property you don't own. They're not going to mortgage your house that's sitting on someone else's land, you know. But, you know, again, environmental groups have been saying, you know, hey, you know what? We screwed up. White people screwed up. We need to give the land back to First Nations communities because they know how to do it properly. And David Suzuki on the West Coast has been a big pusher of that idea, right? Where he says, give the land back. They call it the land back movement. Land back. That's the two words. It's huge out there. And that's David Suzuki and the Suzuki Foundation. They're promoting that, the land back movement. Give the land back to First Nations communities. They'll manage it. They'll do it in the best possible way. Well, we see already, you know, some of the big old trees on Vancouver Island are being tipped down, and their forestry companies being, you know, working for First Nations communities who need the money. So, I mean, it's not that obvious, but for environmentalists thought this is the answer. This is the answer. This is the silver bullet. We slap the white people and give it back to the Indigenous people, and problem solved. And politicians are saying, you know what? It's still going to happen. Those mines and those oil lines are still going to go through, but the politicians won't have to take it on the chin from the environmentalists, because now they've got the First Nations communities on their side to get those deals done and those pipelines built, and they are. So it's makes their life easier, right? So it's all politics and deal making, but again, it's, you know, who's getting sold out, and because of these feelings of we got to do something to protect the environment, to save the environment, and undo the badness of what we've done, and to reverse that because we don't know better. We've done it wrong. It's just, I don't know. It's just
there's points on both sides. Again, and this isn't an attack on any race of people or creed, background, or any of that. At the end of the day, it's let's get back to what's reasonable. And unfortunately, the leadership that's out there has just allowed it to go astray. Like, you know, I don't know who's in control out there, but it's up for grabs from where I'm sitting.
You know, that's the other thing. You know, the fishing community. What is the fishing community? Like, have you ever seen a fishing community? Like, have you seen, you know, you go to outdoor shows, you go to tournaments, you see a bunch of people who love fishing coming together and enjoying their participation and sharing. And you see it on the internet a bit now, but it's not like we have an industry where we hire lobbyists and where we can show here's our numbers. Here's how much money we made. Here's how much taxes we generated. Those numbers are very hard to come by. Yeah. Very hard to come by. And because of that, we're fragmented. We're hard to quantify. You know, it's so much easier to work with a big company that can show those types of results, that can do, you know, big studies and work collaboratively with bureaucrats. You know, their bureaucrats from the company are working with our bureaucrats and the bank's bureaucrats, and they all get along and speak the same language. It's so much easier as a bureaucrat to work that way as it is to work with a whole bunch of people, like some guy who owns a fly tying shop and a restaurant and a fishing lodge and an outfitter with a boat and a guide. You know, these are all people that are just trying to make a living, and you know, third, fourth, fifth generation people trying to make a living doing what their grandfather did and their father did and so forth. it's hard to organize, and when they organize around political lines, they're not doing themselves, I believe anyways, I think they're not doing themselves a favor.
Well, no, at the end of the day, when we're not having, uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? But when you're not having think tanks, when you're not having
Mhm.
brainstorming, when you're not sitting down at a table having, good constructive discussion, at the end of the day, what we see is what Kevin is saying, that, First Nations blockade of the public moose hunting
Mhm.
land is only the beginning in Manitoba. There's already talks about limiting access to public water for anglers as well by First Nation groups and environmentalists, and the government and RCMP is not standing up for us and enforcing the law. And I'm sure they're torn because at the end of the day, this is yet another example of poor leadership. And this
Yeah.
isn't, I don't want to make this partisan because I don't care how you voted. I really don't care. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if you don't recognize this unraveling of what we're talking about here tonight, then obviously you don't see it for what it is. And it's bad leadership. We have people that have been so fed up, whether you're on one side or the other, with everything that's gone on, that we're just going back to the way it was. You know what? Let's just reclaim everything as if for ours. I don't want to play nice in the sandbox anymore. I'm just going to take my ball and I'm going home. That seems to be the attitude. And unfortunately, the environment that's been created by the leadership or lack thereof has got us to this point. So, I challenge our premiers, our prime minister, our opposition, and anybody that has the ability to change what's going on right now to step up and do something. Because if you don't, this is going to get extremely, extremely ugly.
And environmental groups also have to step up and say, hey, look, stop making these emotional battles to win your agendas of canceling fishing, canceling hunting. You got to stop doing that and convincing First Nation communities that you guys can take it back. We'll let you hunt because it's your traditional past. We can tolerate that, but we don't. We want to see all the excesses come to an end, and so therefore take your land, guard your land, don't let anyone on it. You see that more and more, and they're encouraging people to make bad decisions, right?
Yes.
And it's one thing that's in the news. I don't know if you followed this at all. Is about the belugas in Marineland, right? Southern
Yes.
Ontario, the 30 belugas that are stranded there.
Yep.
And there's been a big push from a bunch of environmental groups on the east coast of Canada to set up a rescue sanctuary for whales off the east coast of Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And they've been pushing on this, and I've interviewed the leadership behind this, and they identified the land. They've talked to the people. They've talked to the government. They're trying to raise money. They got almost nowhere. They kept trying to get some killer whales to get, that were their SeaWorld and places like that were shutting down and needed to get rid of their killer whales. But every time they thought they might have scored one, it went and died on them. And now they see these 30 belugas that were going to be sold to China, to that entertainment park in China. And the government of Canada said, no, these belugas aren't going from one entertainment park to another. They need to go into some sort of sanctuary. So now that's breathed some new life into the sanctuary on the east coast of Canada, right? And they're ramping up their fundraising, and looks like even Ontario is going to be chipping in some money to set this sanctuary up, because they're on the hook to keep these belugas alive. If Marineland and Ontario goes bankrupt and walk away from those belugas, the Ontario government has legal responsibility to go in there and rescue those belugas and keep them alive. So they need to figure out what to do with them. So they're going to get involved in supporting this marine sanctuary, where they're going to set up nets and net 40 acres of the ocean in a bay off the coast of Nova Scotia, drop the nets, make a sort of corral, and then put the belugas in there and feed them and look after them, watch them. They won't ever get into the ocean per se, but they'll have a giant sort of bay that they can live in, away from the storms, behind some islands. And I'm thinking, isn't this amazing, right? Now these environmental groups are going to go full tilt and raise money around the world to set up the sanctuary to save these beluga whales. And I'm thinking this is going to be interesting, how this is going to play out internationally. that Canada is going to try to develop this reputation as being the, one of the first big giant marine sanctuaries for whales. And then you just go up to the Arctic and you have indigenous people, Inuit people who hunt belugas and narwhals and eat them on a regular basis. And people at some point, someone over in Europe is going to say, what? Canada's setting up a sanctuary, but they allow beluga whales to be harvested and eaten? That's like Japan eating dolphins and whales, we're always on Japan's ass for eating whales and slaughtering dolphins for food, right? We hate them for that, that's huge media. And everyone piles on the Japanese for that. But I'm telling you, this is going to be an interesting thing. We're setting up a sanctuary in Nova Scotia, and we've got full-on beluga narwhal harvesting going on in Canada's Arctic. The two are totally diametrically opposed. And
I have to go back. How many of these whales are in captivity right now in Marina?
30 belugas.
It goes back to Big Jim's point. Don't fill your live well with a whole bunch of smallmouth so that at the end of the day you can get a wonderful picture of 6, 7, or whatever fish you're allowed. Why do we need 30 beluga whales?
Yeah.
How did it get to 30 beluga whales?
No one even knows how many have died there. Like, they have no idea. It's a private facility, right? They don't have to report every time a beluga dies. No one has the numbers are anywhere from 10 to 30 to 40 belugas have died at marine land.
Like, I can understand we're trying to find a proper home for 3 or maybe 4, but 30 of these whales? First of all, I can't imagine what it costs to feed
$1 million a month. $1 million a month.
$1 million a month
to take care of them. Yeah. And the conditions they're living in are not great, right?
I can't imagine.
They're pretty horrific conditions. Yeah. So leaving them there for the rest of their lives. So what do you bring them up to the Arctic, let them go up there? Well, that's not an answer. No. That's writing on the wall for them. And you can't relieve these animals. These are pets. They're trained to beg for food. They're not trained to hunt. So,
and they're a very social animal too. That's the other thing that is, against them. Because I can just imagine you put them in an unnetted area of the St. Lawrence, and we've got great whites out there, and it'll be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Kevin's got an interesting point to make. The Manitoba Wildlife Federation is lobbying the government on behalf of anglers and hunters and having public forums that I have participated in. Cool, Kev. Sounds pretty hopeless, though, hearing from them where it is all headed. And Manitoba might be a microcosm. It might be ground zero. I don't know. But as I said, every time I pick up a news article regards to salmon and out west, I'm horrified. I'm just and more so now than ever that we're just pitting everybody against one another, and it's just going to be this.
We've encouraged it. We've encouraged everyone to become rule breakers.
Yeah.
And there's just, even out by where we have our exploration center up in the Quebec, there's a boat launch that people use in the area. It's a road that goes down to a sort of a sandy beach where local people who have cabins in the area put their boats in and take them out. And an indigenous person here, a person who claims to be indigenous here living in the Ottawa area, has been doing this now for different parts around the area, where he goes in, stakes out a piece of land, says this is now indigenous land, and he builds a cabin, and then he hands off the keys to some indigenous person and says, here you go. And he took over the boat launch. And people are saying, why are you taking our boat launch? That's everyone's boat launch. That's the public boat launch. Like, you take any piece of land. There's lots and lots of land. Take anything you want. Don't take our boat launch. Like, you think the Quebec government's wading in to clear that one up? They know this guy. They know this guy's he's a lawyer. He claims to be indigenous, and he's doing this because he's on a giant friggin' power trip, right? And he's got people who support him. He's got all sorts of people who support him. Yeah, go. Yeah, reconciliation. Yeah, it's about time. But why the boat launch?
Yeah. Well, we could talk about this all night, Lawrence, but I'll wrap that up because we have certainly gone past the half hour. Anything else that you wanted to mention before we leave?
Before I get persecuted for this conversation.
Well, no, and I want to say, on that note, at the end of the day, I really appreciate all the comments that were made. At the end of the day, guys, you understand what CFN's all about. We're not here to pit people against one another. We're here to find common ground. We're here to find the common sense of what I grew up with. Like I don't know what the heck's going on now, and it's so confusing. It's so troubling. And it just seems like we're doing our very best to pit people against one another. And I hate it.
And to say to people, you can't say that.
Yes.
You can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. We have the right to talk and to exchange our ideas and opinions and views and to be passionate about our values. Right. Like I heard a presentation at the River Institute Symposium, this St. Lawrence River Institute for Environmental Science. This is their 32nd year of having the symposium. Normally, it's just a bunch of scientists presenting papers. And they've been working with this young Indigenous gentleman who's working on his PhD, and he's writing a paper on a new way of economics for Indigenous communities. And it was pointed out to him, you know what? There's a way of making the hydro dam on the St. Lawrence River eel friendly, because 99% of the American eels in the Great Lakes have been wiped out. Because when the females, when they hit 20 years of age, they swim down the river, they go back in the Atlantic Ocean, and they spawn and they die. And when they swim down, they swim through the turbines and get shot out the other end of the turbine at 100 kilometers an hour, and 55% of them are destroyed. And there's a new turbine technology that's just as efficient. It's fish friendly. And we're saying, okay, well, you got to, it's time to replace your turbines. Why aren't you putting in these fish friendly turbines? So this Indigenous person is stepping up and saying, you know what, we got to get engaged with this. So there's good things happening. There's communications and conversations happening, and there's lots of good things. But if people like this young Indigenous man, if he didn't decide, hey, I'm going to put my name on this, I'm going to make it, I'm going to take on Ontario Power Generation and say, you should do this, because the same dam on the American side, they share the dam. They're going to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to do it. So, why isn't Ontario going to do it? I know they told me, they looked into it and they said, oh, they're only 80% efficient. But that was 10 years ago. The technology has evolved. So, sometimes
I'm sure right now it's probably about money. I'm sure the root of it right now that it's not being done is money.
Yeah. But how much are we talking? I don't know. How much are we talking to save a species? And it's a no-brainer, but I don't know. I don't know the economics, but I hate this company. I interviewed the engineers who are designing these fish-friendly turbines. They've got them in turbines in a bunch of different hydro plants throughout the United States. They work, and companies, these private sector hydro companies in the U.S. are buying them.
Yeah.
So they must be cost efficient. Anyways, we gotta feel a little bit passionate about what we believe in. We do. We gotta feel passionate, and we can't be told, "Hey, don't be passionate." No, be passionate. Just be respectful.
If a sports team can bring and unite an entire country,
yeah,
it's obviously not that hard to do. And I don't mean to take anything away from what the Blue Jays accomplished and what they've managed to do for our country, but it obviously can't be that hard to do if a team can bring an entire country together. So we got to figure this out. We really got to figure this out. And obviously, discussions like this are healthy. It gets people thinking outside of the box, outside of the partisanship, because it's not pitting one party against one another, one leader against one another. This is a room full of people from all different backgrounds, and everybody is trying to lay claim as their own. This is mine. This is mine. This is mine. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we all know, that kind of behavior, it didn't work when we were kids. We were told and scolded by our parents, and it shouldn't be working now. But unfortunately, because of the leadership that we have and the guidance that we just haven't had in the last years, it's just, I don't know. It's got us to this point. And I'm hoping we can find some common ground because we need to get back to the common sense before this really starts to unravel. But
Yeah.
Lawrence, as always, dude, I want to thank you so much for your time, and of course your thought and foresight in regards to some of the problems that are facing not only our industry and our fishing community, but our country as a whole. So keep up the great work, bud.
Yeah, you too, man. A pleasure working with you always.
As always, you take care, Lawrence. Have a wonderful week, my friend.
Thanks, man.
And that is our show. And again, it's an interesting way to end it. I hope everybody appreciated that conversation, that dialogue, because it's not easy to have it these days. As Lawrence said, you know, in a lot of cases we're told that we can't say certain stuff and we have to be very careful. I think we were tonight. I really appreciated some of the comments and some of the opinions that were shared. At the end of the day, we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds, but I don't know, that shouldn't determine us. It shouldn't be something that polarizes us. It should bring us together. And as I said, I hate to be one to use a cliche, but if the Jays can do it, anybody can do it. Simple as that. Have yourselves a great week. We look forward to seeing you again next Monday. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to have a show Wednesday, but you will find out, as do I. In the meantime, get out there and enjoy what is the remaining part of our softwater season. I know for some folks it's coming to an end, but there is still time. And of course, there's still steelies to be caught. There's still some salmon out there to be caught. But just stay safe because we are into some interesting weather coming forward and fluctuations in water. So, you know, at the end of the day, stay safe and make sure that you are abiding by the rules and being an ethical angler. We truly appreciate those who are. Have yourselves a great week. Love you all. Take care. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.